Namaste. Welcome to yet another episode of Defense Talks by Thought Habitat Speaks. Our neighbor in the northern frontier, Afghanistan, is undergoing tough times. Yes, we all know that Taliban has taken over Afghanistan for one more time after the exit of United States of America. But what is going to be the impact of Taliban taking over Afghanistan over India? What's going to be the impact of the bilateral relationship? And what's going to be the impact of Pakistan occupied Kashmir? To discuss all this, we have Major Madan Kumar with us. So without much delay, Major Madan, welcome to the show. And despite your busy schedule, you've given some time for us. That's quite appreciable. Thanks a lot. So I have a few questions for you, Mr. Madan. Yeah. So first thing is the abrupt exit of United States of America. Why do you think it is happening now, of all times?
Yeah, the timing, I would say it was already pre-decided. Like last year, way back when Mike Pompeo was, secretary for this particular thing, they decided to pull back the troops. Firstly, there is a reduction in troop, and then subsequently pull back the troop by September 2021. At post, Joe Biden came in and he took over the reins. They decided to prepone it. And this preponement came at a time where they had a haphazard or hashed up peace talks with Taliban and Afghan government somewhere in Doha. And they had nice handshakes and such media news was there. Eventually, they have to pull out. So what America did was they did indeed speak to Taliban on this and to have a face-saving exit. I would limit as face-saving exit. That we will pull back, don't fire at us, just let us, get away smoothly. So Taliban agreed to it. So when they agreed, Americans didn't want Taliban to go back and think in the reverse or, think back in the decision. So as soon as they agreed, they wanted to do it quickly. So they went and executed it. They gave up that the very, very strategic air base at Rabra. From there, they pulled up all the troops, and in fact, they left that place with a lot of precious gift to Taliban, be it sniper rifles or M16 rifles. A lot of small arms and medium arms was given as a bonus to Taliban, and then they took it. So this was timed so that Taliban doesn't change their mind, and it was timed to perfection. To have a very, very if they rethink it and they reverse back, go back in their decision, and if there is a combat is happening on ground, then US would have had a much better exit, precisely a better exit than Vietnam. So as soon as they agreed, they immediately pulled back their troops, and they let a lot of small arms and medium weapons, medium range weapons, that I would read as a defense guy. This has been a pre-decided gift which was handed over to Taliban, so that if I give you a face-saving exit, what you will give me in return. So the negotiation is always two-way. So this was what would have happened. Like there is no documentary proof to it, but those C-17 Globemasters and all those big aircrafts which America owns can eventually take all these equipments back, but they haven't done it. So that's how this entire thing happened up overnight.
Okay. So now, given the timing that USA has left, so which means there is there's a possibility of a superpower like Russia taking over, but we don't see that happening in the near future, at least, right? So with that, do you see any possibility of any other superpower coming forward to support the Afghanistan government, or is it going to be tryst with Taliban?
There is not even 1% chance that Russia can even think of getting into Afghanistan again, because when they were Soviet, when they were a mighty Soviet, they lost it. They faced exactly the same fate which America had faced as on today. and it doesn't give them any strategic benefits. If you do go and do invade and do spend a lot of money, it has to give you something in back, right? So that is not going to help out in Russia in any way. And Russia, as on today, is not financially that strong, economically that strong. Their fleet is aging. Their aircrafts are aging. A lot of military fleet, especially the tanks and all, are very old, and they are not. It's quite aged now. They will not do it. Alternatively, the only last superpower which is left, a bigger country which is left, is China. Now, China, why will China do it? China would always take the easier route of aligning with Taliban, and rather than fighting them out, because they don't have. It is not, China is not a Muslim country or Islamic nation where they have to help out a brother nation. That's not going. So there is no emotions or cultural link which is attached between China and Afghanistan. So obviously China is also not going to do it. So it is going to be a Taliban regime in the coming years.
Okay. So already in our previous discussion, we saw how India is already being rounded left, right, center. On the north, we have Pakistan and China. And on our south, we have Sri Lanka and China together with the current threat of Taliban. We all know that during the 90s, 80s and 90s, we faced a lot of threat because of Taliban. So what is going to be the phase of Kashmir now? So is it going to be again threat from the militants, or how it is going to be?
Threat from militants for Kashmir, yes, does exist. The history says it the same. We have seen it in the past history. Even in fact, while I was in service, we have very often encountered Taliban, or I would not say Taliban terrorists, I would say Afghani terrorists, a pretty strong build. So these smaller factions of Talibans, who are currently were in active combat for 20 years, and these guys have got nothing to do now. Not every Taliban, terrorist will get an official appointment. It's going to be rank and file. Many of them would also be left out. And they will also come under the Taliban's law and order. Whatever the rules they're going to frame, the Taliban who are down below, those terrorists down below, they're also going to be part of the same system. Now, they also have a lot of small warlords and factions, and who has got weapons, and they're well trained. They have a combat experience of 20 years, which possibly no other terrorist force in the world as on today. So when all these things are happening, they may, the agencies like ISI or even the regular Pakistani army, the Chinese intelligence, these forces, anti-India forces, can hire these freelancers and put them to fight in Kashmir. That's very much possible. It has happened in the past. I would rather say it will happen. With conviction, I'm saying this will happen in future, considering the current scenario. Or the bigger threat would be China, Pakistan, Taliban government. Now this is going to be a government. If this axis forms up, that's at a strategic level. What I told you earlier is at a tactical level, which will be restricted at specific locations of Kashmir. Our forces are well trained and well capable of dealing with them. That's not going to be an issue. They will have another guest from a different country. That's all for the forces as of now. They are very much trained and equipped to deal with them. But if you have an axis of one fundamental Islamic nation, which is Afghanistan, led by Taliban, and then we have a pseudo-Islamic nation who call themselves as Islamic nation, but they have a very nefarious design. That's Pakistan. And above them is the world's number 2 power, China. If this happens, yes, that's going to be a strategic threat, long term. It's not immediate. It may happen down 5 to 10 years. Okay, so that kind of threat, I envisage that this is going to be a reality, or it may happen so somewhere in 2026 or 27, down for 4 or 5 years after. So if that such a scenario happens, then we do have a strong alliance. The strong alliance, we are in a path of building up strong strategic partnership with Quad especially. So we need such alliances with Russia. Tajikistan, we already have an air base, if you are aware. So we will also have to build those bases. The relationship as on today we have with Iran, possibly has to go through a change. We may have a defense level of partnership with Saudi, because they are also going to be equally affected in this. So this entire, when three forces on this line just above India, if you just put a line, it is going to cut. It's going to really be on your head. It's a heavy load on your head. If this thing happens, yes, we need to look at other possible alliances. The world powers itself, whenever these things happened in the past, the world powers will automatically align itself. Like Russia was dead against Pakistan. Russia was dead against Afghanistan. Now Russia and Pakistan are doing military drills. Right. So these things keep changing. It's about enemies, enemy becomes friends. So these things keep changing. But we need to have a plan in place. We need to have a very, very strong strategy in place, followed with a very, very robust execution mechanism. People are, the think tanks in India, the experts are already aware of it. As we are speaking now, there is a highest level of countries' defense mechanism, which is a cabinet committee of security headed by the Prime Minister. He is speaking about this now. So all these iterations, possibilities will be discussed, and we need to look at the government, taking the serious actions on this, the strategic part and both the operational and tactical part. One thing which worries me is in this challenge of the new reality of India, where we have kind of enemies all around, in the ever-changing geopolitical scenario, it is prudent and it is a must for our nation to have a very, very strong government in the center. I'm not talking about BJP or Congress. I'm not getting politics into it. It may be BJP, it may be Congress, fine. But we need to have a very, very strong government in the center. If it ends up in a kind of a fractured coalition government, then there is a strong possibility of they putting a wedge, and because the coalition government cannot take a strong decisions at all. They cannot take unpopular decisions. They'll be fighting among each other, and they'll have regional preferences and priorities rather than the national one. So that is the one threat which we need to face.
Yeah, and that's pretty interesting. One thing on what you said about the Farkhor Air Base in Tajikistan. So, if you see recently, in the recent months, Pakistan Prime Minister, Mr. Imran Khan, has been visiting Tajikistan quite often, and Pakistan has invested a lot in Tajikistan. So as if they are supporting Tajikistan in their fight against Kyrgyzstan. They're another, which is Tajikistan's trouble neighbor, right? So in that case, do we still have that full control which we earlier had in the Tajikistan airbase in Farkhor?
See, Tajikistan is our strategic partner. If they allow a foreign country and they need to have a strategic partnership, only then you will allow a foreign country to put a military base there. In that way, Imran Khan visiting Tajikistan will obviously to try to fish and play around with their troubled neighbor, as you said. But Pakistan investing in Tajikistan is just a news for me, because they themselves are begging the world. Where do they have the money to go and invest? So that's not the case. It is about giving something and taking something, or they may give some military hardware. Pakistan does have a lot of redundant military hardware, the older versions of military hardware. Those things can be given to Tajikistan to empower them. But India does have a strategic relation with Tajikistan. In fact, in the current, the day prior, when we went and rescued our embassy staff from Afghanistan, Kabul, so the parking space was not available, and the US forces, which was managing the airborne division, which was managing the Kabul air base, the military airport, they told India to go back and come back the next day. So we didn't fly back all the way to India. In fact, our C-17 Globemaster, they landed up in Tajikistan. It was there in that airport. From there, the next day, they came to Kabul, picked up our embassy staff, and returned back to Jamnagar, Gujarat.
That's really interesting to know. Still we have a good air base abroad. An overseas airbase from where we are looking after POK, and we are having control over the region still. And one last question, Mr. Madan. So if you see, as you already said, we have this Quad alliance in place, and there has to be a robust strategy. In your opinion, if at all, if tomorrow, if Taliban is going to come attacking our borders in Kashmir, so what is going to be the first defense mechanism for us, in your opinion?
Any nation comes in, the defense mechanism is same. We have a fully fenced border. We have a very, very robust Indian army which is standing there along with the paramilitary forces. So we do have, whether it is Afghanistan, whether it is Taliban, whether it is US or UK, the answer of the defense would be same. We are not going to move away an inch. It is not that there are some, God sent soldiers who are like, it's just another terrorist force for us. They're a bit stronger, their combat experience is better. So is ours. So we have been dealing with such an insurgency since 1990. So we are not afraid of it. It's not it's a concern. It's a security concern. Just don't take it the other way or perceive it the other way. It's a threat to us. No, it's not a threat. It's a security concern. We are equipped to deal with it. We have enough of trained men to take care of this. We are one of the largest standing army in the world. So we can deal with such eventualities. But Pakistan, Taliban's entering India is as a force is impossible because if at all they have to come through POK. POK will never come and Pakistan will never risk Talibanizing POK. It is suicidal for them. And in fact, Pakistan is the nation to worry today because they share the highest land border with Pakistan, with Afghanistan. And Afghanis, especially the Pashtuns, they don't care a damn about the Durand line and the imaginary map which we see where we demarcate Afghanistan with Pakistan. They think it is all the same. So Pakistan, short term, they may have some few advantages. Even China may have some few advantages. As I told, they may come to send those freelancers to Kashmir. But on a long term, Taliban can never be trusted. If you look at the editorial in way back in 1980s, US New York Times, the so-called New York Times, which is supposed to be the elite and the most the flag bearer of human rights and so. I will share that article with you. They wrote, freedom fighter Osama bin Laden leading his way, building up intra projects in Sudan. Now the freedom fighter became the most wanted man of America. There are 4 presidents who are going behind him. Okay. And if I rightly remember, there was close down to the industry, the gaming industry, which was the gaming industry, which made games on, how to kill Osama. All the American kids way back in 90s were playing those games. 2000, they were playing those games. So they made a business out of it, around $5 billion, if I'm not wrong. So it is nobody's friends forever. You can be a friend to a nation only if you're culturally aligned and your ideology is aligned.
Yes.
So India always, as a nation, we always believe in Dharma. So we have all our alliances are way more or less since Mahabharata times, all our alliances are based on this, and we have our own mechanism of dealing with people. So all these alliances, there's a hardcore Islamic nation which believes in the medieval Sharia laws, is Afghanistan. And you have Pakistan where there are 4 different ethnicities. The Sindhis are different. The Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, the Pashtuns are different. The Baluch is different. The Punjabis are different. Right? In the POK, the Gilgit-Baltistan, those tribes are different. But the country is primarily ruled by Punjabis there. So those Punjabis mostly live in Karachi, Lahore and all these places. It's an ultra-modern world. The Karachi has got better nightlife than Mumbai, in a way.
Oh, wow.
So will these people go into this Sharia fundamental law? The answer is no. It's no way they can gel. It is all opportunistic relationship, which may last long for some time. But eventually, we can connect. Maybe if I'm alive or you are alive, all of us are healthy and healthy. We can connect again after a decade. Mark my words. Mark these words. Pakistan will exactly face the same issue as Taliban in a matter of a decade, 10 years now. It's a timer. There is a security concern for India. We are not having a threat as of now. Yes, we are going to face a threat, as I told you. But the bigger concern is for the Pakistan as a nation. And to reasonably or equally to a certain extent, it's also China. And the Quad which I'm mentioning is not the Quad which is Japan, India, America, and US. Sorry, Japan, India, Australia, and US, right? This is specific for Indo-Pacific region, specific to put down China and control China and South China Sea. The Quad out here is there are 4-5 different other nations. There has to be 4 nations which have to focus on this. It's not American business anymore. They have left it high and dry. It's not going to be American business anymore. So India need to focus with its improved ties on this specific thing with Russia, especially all those countries bordering Afghanistan. In any which way, Iran comes as a natural ally in this because of the Shia-Sunni debate. They cannot ever gel well with the Afghan side of Islam. So all these things will develop opportunities for India as well. But as I told you, all these things works only when you have a very strong government which can take decisions. My worry is not Taliban's. My worry is not the Talibans coming into Kashmir. We can always fight them. It's not a great deal. It's not about the geopolitical scenario. We don't have any control over the geopolitical scenario. It will keep changing. No, we can, to an extent, we can predict it. We can have a strategy in place, but it's going to change. The problem is the country at this juncture, for at least for next 10 to 15 years, need to have a very strong leadership, and also need to have a very strong government which can take decisions. If we have a government which is managed, a coalition government with 20 parties coming together, trust me, we lost the game. And that is what all the countries want. It's easy to, all these regional parties can never have a national perspective at all. They are just bothered about their state, their regional aspirations, and their politics. Somebody has to take the helicopter view and think for the nation, not for the state. State is part of the country. So that is one thing which I request through your channel and to the people seeing this video. It is not Ram or Ravan. Anybody can rule. You vote for BJP, Congress, I don't bother. Okay, but thing is, we need to have a strong government. People have to keep the national vision in place when voting for a parliament election, Lok Sabha elections. If we vote for regional parties and if we don't have a national this thing, trust me, those scenes which we saw, people hanging on the helicopters, rotors, it can happen here as well.
Yes. Absolutely. So it's quite interesting to know a lot from you, and it's quite affirming that Indian Army can face anything and everything, come what may. So, this country survives today only because of its armed forces, not because of anyone else. I would definitely say that. So thank you for all your time, Major.
Our people make the armed forces. Armed forces doesn't come from heaven. It's one among me, your family and my family and people's family. They come for, come and take this. We are the world's largest volunteer force. We don't force anyone to join army. We have a very high merit system, and the selection ratio is less than 10%. So we have the most caliber and high potential men and women who take care of our security. We don't have to worry about it. I assure this nation through your video.
Yeah. Thank you so much for all your time. Jai Hind.
Thanks, Arvind. Jai Hind.